Now this video is going to be how to do a bodywork repair. We're going to use a hugger from a Triumph Adventure bike that belongs to Michelle as an example. But the work that we're going to do would apply to anything. In this case, looking back at an older video, doing a Bimota fairing for Vlad, the tabs that break off, the fairing parts that crack, all of this repair is very similar. Now a lot of these bikes, like the Bimota, very expensive to get the parts or impossible. And in the case of the Triumph, I think you can buy the part, but they're really overpriced. So being able to fix things on your own, and I try to show this step by step. There's a lot of them, other ones on my videos, but this technology is the same if you're using anything, even carbon fiber parts, plastic parts, and up to some point maybe even some sheet metal parts. The repair using carbon fiber is always very, very similar, and I'm going to try to show it in detail. So today I'd like to show how to repair a typical motorcycle plastic part. Now this is the hugger off Michelle's Triumph, and it's a Jivvy part. She bought it with this part on the bike, and there's a very good chance for us to show how to do a proper repair with carbon fiber, of course. And I'll try to do it step by step in a rational way. I think anybody can do this. I don't think this is a difficult thing, but a lot of people would have a problem figuring out how to set the piece, how to maintain the bolt locations. I'm going to try to show all it. I've done this for many years. There's 2,400 videos out on my channel. To get to them, you put my name in quotation marks, Windy Urtnowski, and then the subject like fairing repair, composite repair, carbon fiber, blank, 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 and they will come up. Anyway, we're going to get started. This is a relatively simple repair. It should take a couple hours, and we can make Michelle's bike better than new. So step one, no matter what you're repairing, an airplane part, a motorcycle part, or whatever, you want to save all the pieces. Rule one in any repair is save all the pieces, because if we didn't have this piece, when I set this back in, I would not be able to get the bolt hole aligned conveniently or get it real close that I could just ream it out a little. So step one, and it is a critical thing when you're trying to show somebody how to repair something, is to save every little part, even parts, put them in a plastic bag you don't think you'll need. You'll see how important that is later in the repair. Now you might think it was self-evident, but I've seen a lot of people, even people that are working in my shop from time to time, that didn't understand how important it was to clean the part before you paint it. Totally clean. Simple Green is the best stuff I know for doing it, but any real soap product, rinse it in the sink, let it soak in a few minutes. The reason is very simple. When we're going to do the bond, I don't want to get my hands in here, pick up some grease, and then get it up in the bond area. It's the most important, of course, where I'm going to have the carbon fiber bonding to the plastic and getting that bond to be as structurally good as possible. But clean, the best thing I can say is when you think it's clean, clean it one more time, take it over to your slop sink, rinse it, rub it with a little brush, anything. Get the part perfectly clean. That's always step one. Now this is a funny thing. While I'm cleaning this, I may as well pass this information on. When Michelle was here, we went to Luciano's, went for a ride, blah, blah, blah. I checked her chain and we noticed this was loose. So she was a big believer in, and I give her credit for saying it because I'm passing on this information. Says, yeah, she looked at one of my videos and she said, yeah, every time you clean the bike, you notice something's loose or something's breaking, and the older the bike is, the more this is going to happen. Since a lot of my bikes are historic, basically something falling off them on a regular basis. But even a newer bike, it's good to check it. It never hurts. It's like checking the oil, checking the air in your tires. Nothing bad happens if you don't need air in the tires. Nothing good happens if you're down 5 pounds or whatever, or you find you got a nail or whatever. But here's the first thing. Real simple technology. I look at a part, and this is another critical step, whatever you want to call it. You look at a part like this and you think, it's a piece of plastic. Why? I'll just go buy a new part. And then you go to Partzilla or wherever, and Michelle did this in the garage when we were working on our bike. She looked up Jivvy, looked up this part. It's $162. And then there's probably shipping involved. It's probably $175 by the time you get it in-house. So for $175, we could spend a couple hours. And knowing how to fix this stuff, there's another advantage. Here's the advantage. You don't need this part to ride the bike. But let's pretend it's a part you need to ride the bike, something that you can't ride without it. And you need to just fix this tab on a fairing or on a windshield or something like that. The advantage you have now is you do this repair. 2 hours later, you're riding a bike. You're not waiting for UPS to come and, oh, we've got the wrong part, send it back, return it. When you can do your own repair, you're way ahead of the game. And once the part's thoroughly clean, I'll dry it off with a clean towel, and we'll be ready to start working on it. So what I'm trying to show here is this is a part that's broken. You can see that's broken, and it's cracked up here. And so what we have to determine, I have to find the highest spot that I'm going to have to carbon fiber, which is this piece plus maybe 3/4 of an inch. And so before I do anything, I'm going to back mask off the area that I'm going to work on so that I don't scuff it up unnecessarily. Okay, so I've back masked off all the area. I just don't want to scuff that. Now what I need to do is get some, probably, I'm just going to guess some 400 sandpaper and just roughen this up. It's as clean as I can make it. I want to roughen it up. If I were to just go repair over this, probably not going to be anywhere near as strong as if I sand it. I need to get that tooth. I need like 2 washboards so that the glue area has a lot more glue area, and we're going to use some high quality glue in this repair. But if you don't scuff it up, all bets are off. Now also, getting it roughened up is critical for another reason, and it's pretty simple to figure this out. Every time you put a scratch on, you increase the glue surface area, and that's what gives it the strength. Whether you're doing a repair that's a cosmetic repair, this is not a cosmetic repair. This has to hold the part in place. So I don't want to compromise it. I don't want to have to do this over again. And the point is, once you have the part off the bike and you have it clean, it only takes a few minutes more to do the correct prep. And having it roughed up, every part of it roughed up, very important. Now, a lot of people, even when I started doing fairing repair many years ago, I would look at a part like this and go, how am I going to glue that in place? Where is it going to go? Does it go that way? Does it go that way? And I'd be confused, or I'd glue it and it would be this. I'd have a crack. So the first step on any of this stuff is I want to get the crack, so this doesn't move. So what happens is now, once I can glue the crack, I've minimized the chance that I'm going to get this in crooked. So that's always something that's a little tricky, but definitely I'm going to show how I do it. There's obviously more than one way to do any of this stuff, but my way has worked for many years, and I bet we've done 100 fairings in this shop over the years. And where the crack is, I'm going to put a piece of tape on the back and tape these pieces so I know they're in place. I need to make a picture frame. I'm making a picture frame so that I'll have the minimum amount of material around here to fill in with carbon fiber. Now, I'm not sure how good I'm going to be able to show this, but I've used tape to hold everything in place. So I've got that picture frame exactly the way I want it. And now this is the part. Once I build this up, it's like the foundation of a house. Once I build this part up, then I can set that piece in and get that in the place I want. But right now, building that, what I'll call the picture frame, so that this piece is going to have the minimum amount of material around it, it'll just make this so much stronger. Okay, so one of the things when you have CA, you always keep it in the refrigerator. We're down to our last bag here. Anyway, it's always kept in the refrigerator. Now you can buy any CA, of course, but the best CA there is that I know of, because it's always fresh, is from Brodak.com. Now anybody that's a modeler knows you wear gloves when you use this, or else you wind up gluing your fingers together. We just need a few drops of this to get this part to join. It's capillary, so it's going to go down into the joint. I need to ever so little just to get it in there anywhere I need it to build this. I'm building a picture frame here is what I'm doing. Now, once I get that on, I could use Kicker. That's the accelerator. It's Freon, but rather than do that, I'm just going to rub it a few times with the Q-tip. The Q-tip is a slower cure, but the dust from the Q-tip makes a much stronger joint, I think, because it isn't so it's all CA, not half Kicker. So we're going to let that dry for about 10 seconds, and then we'll be ready to go on to the next step. So now the trick is going to be to get this piece in there, and There's still little pieces missing, 2 little pieces missing, but just get it held in place so we can put the carbon fiber in place. Now you can see if we had these 2 little parts, boy, that would have been beautiful, but again, we didn't save the parts. At the time this happened, it was shame on me. I didn't know we were going to do this. But anyway, now the thing is, I have this shape that I want. I need to get a sanding block and some, 180 grit paper or whatever, and just roughen this all up, smooth it out, because we're going to be ready to lay a piece of carbon fiber in there. Now what I want the roughest grit paper I can get, because this is the kind of thing, the rougher I can make this, the better the carbon fiber will bond. And this looks like the roughest one. We're going to try to just use that. The idea is to get it as smooth so we can lay in a layer of carbon fiber. It's a critical part, no matter what kind of glue, fiberglass, polyester resin, no matter what you do. The surface has to be clean, dry, and rough. And the rougher the better, you get a much better tooth. Okay, we got that roughed in, and now we're ready to cut a piece of carbon fiber and get ready to put that first layer of carbon fiber in there. Now the resin that I'm going to be using is an aircraft resin. It's sold by Brodak, Brodak.com. You can get it just delivered right to your house, or go to Brodak's and buy it. And this is carbon fiber that I used to use to make model airplane exhausts. I have scraps, of course, laying everywhere here. The boxes of scraps. So we're going to cut up an appropriate size piece and get the first layer on. So here's a good useful little tip when using a flux brush like we're going to be using on epoxy. Put a little blue tape on the end, because that's a razor blade on the end. It winds up cutting your hand pretty good if you don't. Now this is a 50-50 mix, and so nothing special about the mix. We're going to just mix up just enough to do this, and we'll be all set to go. So step 1, of course, is to mix the epoxy real well. This is an easy to use epoxy. It doesn't stink. Some of the epoxies in my shop really stink the house out. I try to wait till Karen's not going to be here to use them, or I'm not going to be here. Anyway, just enough. We just need enough to get this wet. Now see, at this point, we're using this just for basically a mold. And this is what's really nice about this whole thing. You can do this. We'll check once this first layer dries that we've got it good and solid. Flip it over and do the other side. If it's then strong enough, because I want this to be inside a sandwich. I don't want this to be, if you just do this one side, the odds are really good it's going to crack, because you're going to have a stress riser right where the carbon fiber begins is going to be a stress riser. And good luck with that. Now what's good about this will cover up, in essence, the holes that we're trying to, where the parts we really can't replace are. We can set that in there. It'll kind of hold it. We also have a good alignment before we do anything of where that hole has to be for that bolt. I wouldn't want to do this whole thing and have that bolt not line up. Now with whatever resin is left over here, just pat this down, get it wet. I don't have to make it pretty yet. This is not the part where we try to make it look half decent. But I want it to get into all the nooks and crannies. That's why we have the blue tape on there, because I don't want to mess that part of it up if I don't have to. That can all get sanded in. And now the thing is to put it aside to dry, and we'll go have a cup of coffee. And patience in between waiting for this resin to dry is a big thing, so a good way to be patient, have an extra cup of coffee. Now the Brodak epoxy in about 5 or 10 minutes gets to be chewing gum, but it doesn't get hard enough that you can sand it for a while. If you have a heating vent in the house, we don't have the heat on yet, of course, and we would put this up by the heating vent. But right now what I'm going to do is just trim off close. I don't want this material on here. Take off the blue tape on the other side and put the carbon on the other side. Now the only reason for trimming this overage off, the epoxy's like chewing gum, it just gets in the way. It just makes it a little bit easier to do the work. But about a half an hour from now, we'll be able to sand that, roughly a half an hour. Now the next step is we can remove all the blue tape from back here, because this is the part that we're going to sand and then put our next layer of carbon fiber. So in essence, we're going to have a sandwich with carbon fiber on both sides. And that's the correct way to do this. Now the objective is to get this all rough and smooth, and then before we put the carbon fiber on, to spot that hole. So that hole, now I know it'll be in exact alignment. This part won't go on crooked or under some kind of stress. I have several of these little power sanders I got from Harbor Freight. They all work great. And if you didn't have a power sander, you could do this all by hand, but it'd probably take an extra, well, who knows. But the power sanders are under $20 at Harbor Freight. Very handy. Now we know, and this is a critical thing, we know that hole is in exactly the right spot now. So what I want to do is very carefully, I want to get my Dremel tool and a burr and spot that hole. Then I don't lose the alignment of it when I put the carbon fiber on that side. If I put this side next, I don't know where that hole is exactly. This is the burr that seems to go right through carbon fiber. You never want to drill carbon fiber. You always want to do it with a burr. And I put that on many of the videos. A lot of people have done a beautiful repair like this, go to drill a hole and it cracks the whole part. A burr is always a better choice. Good information. Now we have that hole in place, so that spotting that hole is a big thing, because if we didn't have that, you'd have a real problem getting the alignment on this. I know where the cracks are. I'm making sure I'm gone past the cracks by at least ½ an inch. There should be no issues on this at all when I'm done, hopefully. And this will be a double lamination, double carbon fiber. What's going to happen is this will be stronger than the part itself. If it ever breaks again, it'll break right at the end of the carbon fiber is what will happen. And that's where the new stress riser will be. Okay, so we're going to just babysit this down in place. Once this dries, I'm going to have to let it dry for an hour or so, or maybe even overnight, I don't know. It'll be a time-consuming thing to let this dry. Now, if this was a hot summer day, I'd put this out in the sun, let it cook. If it was a winter day, I'd put it up by a heating vent. But you know what? It's neither one of them. So I'm going to have to just be patient. And patience doing this kind of work. And it's always this way. And I know everybody that's watched many of my videos has told me the same thing. Boy, you work on this and it's all messy and sandy and dirty and filthy. And oh my God, you're breathing that stuff in and this and that and that. And at the end, you got a beautiful part. At the end, you go out to the garage and you go, oh my God, parts are beautiful. So I know Michelle will appreciate this. Basically, we're going to try to do a halfway decent job of finishing this off. But it's in a part of the bike that you're not really going to see, so it really doesn't matter. If this were the top of the gas tank, we'd have to really be careful and get the weave of the carbon straight and everything. But right where this is, and it's probably the first time you go through a mud puddle, it's going to get dirty anyway, so but we'll still make it as nice as we can, because the gods see everywhere. So what we have now, both parts are laminated. That epoxy is going to dry probably an hour or so before we come back to it. I have other shop projects I'm working on now, so I'll let this dry and we'll trim this off, and well, we'll see what we have when we get to that point. But I think that worked out. When that epoxy is dry, that's going to be definitely stronger than the rest of the part. So I let that dry for about an hour and we're ready. The epoxy's still a little soft, but I want to trim it off, just see if I can get some of the rough trimming done. Now, of course, from this point on, the job is basically cosmetic. We've done all the structural part of this, and once the resin totally cures, which usually be 24 hours, we're ready to put this back on the bike. Now, I'm showing this in fast forward. I used a belt sander, among other tools, the Dremel tool. But in the end, most of it has to be done by hand, to be honest about it. Now, the reason for getting rid of anything that's like a sharp edge, because even these little threads that stick out of the carbon fiber are really, when that epoxy hardens up, or CA, they turn into razor blades. And you can just take and get one under your fingernail or something that just ruins your whole day. In the end, it's always the little sanding block and sanding everything by hand. And it's very time consuming to do this. It just takes time. It's a labor of love. If you don't want to do this, easy. Just go pay and buy a new part. But so what I did is I replaced the blue tape with some ordinary Gorilla tape, just so I don't scratch the part where I don't want to scratch it. The part in here inside, there's no way I can avoid scratching it. And there's a lot of decisions on a job like this. Do you want it to be cosmetically pretty or never break again? And I think what I've done here is gone for not break again, because this is a part you really don't, it's not on the top of the gas tank or something. And I really think if this were to break and we were being held on by one bolt, and if this came off and jammed its way in by the chain or something, nothing good would happen. But ultimately, at the end of all of these jobs, you have to do the final half hour or so of sanding by hand. There's no way around that. And we'll finish this up. Structurally, this is as good as you can make it, as good as I can make it anyway. And cosmetically, I think we'll just sand it and try to get it nice and mechanically looking correct. And once it's done, we'll give Michelle a call if she wants to come down here. I'll retrofit it. Now, the reason for fitting it and not just bringing it up to her is sometimes you have an interference fit somewhere you didn't even expect, or something that needs to be trimmed. And of course, I can do that here. And it's not a big deal at all to do that. So the rest of this is just basically hand sanding, and then we have the spot for the hole. That'll be very accurate. And this it looks like this is going to be a repaired part that'll be even better than new, because even if you bought a new one and something was funky going on here, you might crack the new one and you'd be out another $164. Now, I just hit this with some 400 paper, but again, the resin is really too soft to even sand it with anything finer than that. But now see how important this is? I have the spot for the hole. I'll go to get the Dremel tool, spot that hole, and that I'm going to take the paper off when I'm done. And basically, this came out way better than I thought it would. I think, yeah, I don't want to make this shiny. I was going to put some gloss, resin or something on it. I thought it's not going to look right, that part of it, and we're no way we're going to bury that joint anyway. So I think we'll just sand that with some 400 when we're done, and that'll be it. Try to get it looking like the rest of it. And again, it's a part you really don't see, but it's $164 too. And it's so important to get that hole spotted just right. That is one critical part of the job. But hey, that finishes up the job. And once this is installed on a motorcycle and I know everything lines up, it's not under any stress, of course that'll be the final piece of the puzzle. But that is a really good structural repair, and I think, again, because of where it is on a motorcycle, I don't even think you're going to see that. So I think this repair went as good as I could have possibly expected, and I don't think you're going to break that. Be very impressed if somebody breaks that. Anyway, we'll be ready to put this back on the bike the next time Michelle is here. And again, it's the same technology for fixing fairing tabs, tabs for side covers, and we've done this hundreds of times. They're all out on the channel. Again, just a reminder, my name in quotation marks, and the subject that you'd like to see: painting, sanding, buffing, whatever, or carbon fiber work. They're all out there. They're free. I hope it benefits you and helps you enjoy the passion of repairing motorcycles, whether they're old or new. This is a relatively new bike. This is not even a 40-year-old bike or anything. So anyway, I hope you did enjoy the video, maybe shared some good information. I hope I didn't leave out any steps, and thanks so much for watching. So if you're new to the channel, thanks for joining us. Keep in mind, out on our channel are over 2,400 videos right now. Most of them deal with some technology, some of it carbon fiber, some of it repair, a whole lot of it painting. A whole lot of it is taking older fairings from older bikes and bringing them up to whatever we can to do to make them look as good as possible. We also do a lot of custom wheels. If you put my name and the custom wheels, what's going to come up is about 100 videos. We try to do some polishing, buff and wheel. I try to share the technology that allows you to keep a bike as polished and nice looking as possible. Do a lot of carbon fiber work, a lot of maintenance tips. But you never know from day to day, because with older motorcycles, and if you have a passion for these older motorcycles, you know what I'm talking about, there's always some maintenance that has to be done. And when there is no maintenance, I try to do upgrades, or combination of both with the oil changes and the tires and all of this stuff. But the objective of the channel is to share good quality information, share it in a fun way, and with a good sense of humor from time to time, and our meetups and our rides, and all the things we do to share the passion of motorcycling. And if you enjoyed the video, hey, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.